The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development has revised its outlook for the economies of Central Asia. The region is forecast to grow 4.5% in 2021 and in 2022, reflecting stable commodity prices, which will benefit commodity exporters like Kazakhstan, but also recovering remittances. To help better understand the growth forecast for Kazakhstan, I'm joined today by the new Managing Director for Central Asia at the EBRD, Ms. Zsuzsanna Hargitai. Ms. Hargitai, welcome. Now, as we're looking into emerging from this pandemic and recovering our economies, targeted and focused support for sectors that have been badly hurt by the global health crisis is needed. What are some of the sectors that need immediate support in Kazakhstan, that need recovery, that have been badly hurt?
Look, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me, Lyazzat. This is my first interview since I arrived in Kazakhstan 2 months ago. Looking around, first of all, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, we put in place the so-called solidarity package a year ago. And that, for all the countries where we operate, altogether some 21 billion euros. And what we have been focusing on is exactly what you are saying, which are the sectors that require assistance. In some areas, it requires simply loan restructuring. And this happens. It should happen also in Kazakhstan. You simply adjust loan repayment to the cash generating capacity of certain companies. When I talk about companies, number two, these are the small and medium-sized companies. Let's face it, when we talk about Kazakhstan or my own country, Hungary, a medium-sized company is small. In Western terms, they have less reserves. So working capital financing is extremely important. In Kazakhstan, there is also a subsidy scheme, and we return to that, how it can be re-engineered to support them. Last but not least, in Kazakhstan, logistics. Transport has suffered all across the globe, but again, in Kazakhstan as well, it has not been immune. National air carriers, they have had major problems, air navigation services. Just recently, we signed a loan with Air Astana, very well managed, I must admit, state-owned national air carrier. It's a combination of working capital financing, which the company required because of COVID, but looking into the future, they will also be investing, including in flight simulation training. And when it comes to small, medium-sized enterprises, we might revisit this as well, services. So anything that has to do with services, be it the hairdresser, be it the restaurant, anything else, they are the ones. Not only they need to recover, but they reopen. And many of them will simply cease to exist because they did not have the reserves.
And Air Astana recently reported profit in the past year and a half. What are the prospects for the company moving further? Especially now, since international travel is still restricted, it's not in full capacity.
Let me put it that way. First, we wouldn't have lent to this company without the guarantee of the state, because we take the risk of Air Astana if we did not have confidence in how they would be performing, not now, in the years to come. Number two, it's a very tightly managed company that has responded very well. So it cut back on costs, it looks at potential new opportunities. So again, you can imagine that at my board of directors, we had a lot of questions, why to support a state-owned airlines? And we said, it's state-owned, but it's so well managed, and it's so badly needed in Kazakhstan. And then also our board of directors looked at the figures. So I think that Air Astana has very good prospects, not only to survive, but develop further. And this is what we supported with our loan.
Now, the economists of the bank have recently revised the economic outlook for Kazakhstan from 3% to 3.6% in 2021, and the country is forecast to grow 3.8% next year. What was the rationale and reasoning behind this revision?
Our economists looked at two things, essentially. Slowly, you would say, but steadily private consumption is picking up. And number two, as the global economy is picking up, so energy prices, oil prices are picking up, which hit Kazakhstan already, even before COVID in 2020. So these are the two main factors that would prompted us to revise the growth prospects for Kazakhstan for 2021 and 2022.
Ms. Hargitai, the improvement of Kazakhstan's economy was made possible due to timely vaccination campaign rollout, but also government's comprehensive crisis relief and crisis response package. And these included tax exemptions, subsidies, and cheaper loans. And now moving further and looking into the future, what do you think some of the long-term structural changes that are needed in Kazakhstan to ensure economic stability?
2 or 3 things come to my mind, come to our mind. Number one is, you would ask me if I had not mentioned it, inflation has galloped away a bit in Kazakhstan. So one needs to have a look at these support measures which were timely, robust. You can't say the government did not react on time. How to rejig them, re-engineer them. Do we need subsidies, or should we set up rather a loan guarantee scheme to induce a developed Kazakh banking sector to lend to small and medium-sized companies? Number 2, could we take digitalization further? You can imagine, I was impressed. When I came here, I looked at how government services work for citizens. I would like to look at how we take it forward, whether it's municipal utilities, whether it's procurement, whether it's road maintenance. Can we use, we are going to use, I'm not telling you a secret, we are discussing with the road maintenance agency in Kazakhstan artificial intelligence to do that. So number 1, rejig the support to SMEs, from subsidies more to guarantees, targeted support, and not for everybody. Number 2 is how to use digital technology, new technology. And number 3, how to open up the economy even more for private sector initiative. In this regard, we very much welcomed, and I very much hope that we shall learn more from the President what he meant by further privatization. I mentioned to you Air Astana. It's one of the rare examples in the world of a company that is so well managed and is state-owned. There is much potential in Kazakhstan for private sector initiative, and President Tokayev talked about a new wave of privatization. So these are the 3 bits, and of course I would like to weave into all this, because that can create jobs, better environment, green economy. You are talking to EBRD, so our interview cannot be full without talking about the green transition.
Well, since you started talking about greening the economy is one of the ambitious plans that the current Kazakh president has put forward, and last year he's announced that Kazakhstan is striving to become carbon neutral by 2060. And how is EBRD involved in making, in helping Kazakhstan achieve that goal, and how realistic that ambition is? And what are some of the trade-offs?
2060 is far away. So, but we have to start working on it now. And EBRD, I hope my Kazakh partners will understand if I say I'm up to my ears in this. We are working on one sector in particular. You would agree with me that it's important. This is the decarbonization of the energy sector. So we are already giving strategic advice. It's woven into the low carbon economy. We have been discussing it. We signed a memorandum of understanding. We'll be there. Let's talk somewhere around January, February next year about how it looks like. We believe it's doable. It's very important how the Kazakh authorities engage with all those who are in the coal sector. For them, it would be toughest to make the change. In some of the countries elsewhere where I worked before, we also worked on just transition, so that for investors, but the population, the employees of the coal mines, there is a decade or 2 long transition out of coal. Number 2, we have to recognize, and I have to say it to all our shareholders as well, that in Kazakhstan decarbonization cannot happen without some transition with gas. Use that transition fuel. One of my first visits, finally outside Nur Sultan and Almaty, I'm still limited to travel, was to Temirtau. So we started a discussion on the back of the ArcelorMittal Temirtau company, looking at their own decarbonization plan, where gas plays a very strong role together with renewable energy. So we are there. This is energy sector. We would be very happy to look at individual industrial sectors as well. Typically, these are the cement plants, petrochemical. So again, we would be there. I think the ambition is there, and I think it's a realistic ambition for Kazakhstan to become carbon neutral by 2060.
Now, for the past few decades, Kazakhstan has really relied on foreign investments. that really helped accelerate the economy, build up the economy once the country gained independence. How did you think the investment flow has been affected by the pandemic?
Investment flow overall. So don't take it as an example for Kazakhstan. Everybody has withdrawn a bit. First, they couldn't travel. They looked at logistics rather than new investment, cutting back costs overall. Look, with the new impetus that I believe the Kazakh government would like to give to inviting further foreign investors, including through privatization, with the work that we are doing, and we shall put in double effort. You may know that EBRD co-chairs the Foreign Investors Council, which is not just, you only see the ceremony. Yeah, it's beautiful. Now the ceremony is preceded by a year of work on what to improve in terms of regulations, implementation, between tax administration, incentives. So we would double this work because I think Kazakhstan remains a very interesting country for foreign investors. We are seeing it. We are seeing it with the implementation of the renewable energy projects. I would like to see more. One of my colleagues is here looking at foreign investments and trying to eliminate obstacles for the agribusiness industry so that you can have higher value-added products. It's not a dream situation yet. We are working towards it, and I think that Central Asia overall will continue to be interesting. Yes, I must admit also Uzbekistan return to Central Asia, if you allow me to put it that way, also helps with the attractiveness of the region.
Economic inclusion is one of the major challenges here in the region, specifically in Kazakhstan, and with this pandemic we're looking at a risk of another 1 million children falling into poverty, and according to the World Bank, the Central Asia will account for the 40% of the new poor in Central Asia and Europe, and these are really saddening forecasts. Where do we start addressing economic inequalities and promoting inclusion?
I'm happy to come back for another discussion just dedicated to that, but together probably also with colleagues from the World Bank. But let me put it, 2 or 3 things I wanted to mention. Economic inclusion overall is one of the top EBRD priorities. So again, coming from our mandate as a liberal market economy promoter, one couldn't help recognizing how many people have been left behind, and you mentioned how many people are being left behind, and their number might be increasing. In Kazakhstan in particular, with colleagues we have been discussing with Kazakh counterparts, what is it that we can do? I mentioned already getting out of the 2 major centers. So whether it's our Green City program in Shymkent or in Almaty, we would love to go as to Oskamen, now Usk-Kamenogorsk and others. So getting out of these cities, go Horibiledik to Mangistau, where we are present already. So regional inclusion is part of our response. I'm also not from the capital of Hungary, Budapest, so I deeply sympathize, even if the size of our country is slightly smaller. So regional inclusion must be there. This is how and why we developed our advice for small business centers, so that we can reach out. We cannot reach out to everybody, but we would like to show example. Also for other international financial institutions to go out, help develop small, medium-sized enterprises, entrepreneurial culture, but also with large companies. What we try to do, we are not where the World Bank with educational policies, but what we do is when we work with companies like Atirau Refinery, we agree with them the financing, which was for environmental project, but we also push them to set up a special training program for young people. Again, you might be familiar with our Women in Business program, supporting women entrepreneurship through advice and also financing. Your question is much bigger, I recognize, than the answer I have given to you. I will be happy to elaborate on this further, but these are things to illustrate how EBRD approaches inclusion.
Ms. Hargitai, out of all the EBRD engagements in Central Asia, what are you most excited about?
I must admit to you that it's green. It's still green. It's not because the colors of my eyes are green, because green is everywhere. So green for me means we have a technology, basically transition, because green typically means embracing already cutting-edge technology. I mentioned to you this, I should mention to you, because I'm amazed by it. You know, how artificial intelligence is used for road maintenance and making this green, with the use of the drones and looking at, amazing. how they do it. We are importing it from Latin America, by the way, here where they have applied it. Green for me is important because it does create jobs. So one would say, what shall we do with the coal mines? What shall we do? Everything will be just, robots and us. It does create jobs. We have to put our mind more at use. That's why education is extremely important. Green is for me there so that you and we can benefit from better quality food. So going there, and this would be one of my obsessions when I come here, of how EBRD could get to agribusiness, even to agriculture. So green is all-embracing for me, and this is something which I would very much make the priority of my mandate here in Central Asia. And when we talk about green, we must address these legacy issues as well. Now, I'm delighted to tell you, it's not in Kazakhstan, but very, very important for Central Asian region, that we are about to sign a major environmental remedial facility. It doesn't mean you anything. What does it mean to any of our spectators? It means that EBRD teamed up together with Uzbekistan, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, the International Atomic Agency and Rosatom, to deal with the legacy of uranium mines. It's shocking how it has not been treated. The good news is it will be treated. The main message is we will be working in the coming years towards preventing so that any leakages from these mines do not get into the rivers in Central Asia. If that should happen, let us not visualize any science fiction pictures, but areas in Central Asia could be devastated. We can still act on time, and we'll do it.
Ms. Hargitai, Central Asia is a strategically important region geopolitically, and strong and stable Central Asia is all the more important now with the regime change in Afghanistan. How is EBRD involved in ensuring economic stability and security in the region amid these increased external threats?
We will continue what we have done so far. A lot depends on, you would agree with me, on how we can work with the governments in these countries, even when we work with the private sector, because they create those enabling investment conditions. Our shareholders, I've got the distinct feeling, we had a session with them on the situation in Afghanistan. We are not active in Afghanistan. And they were very much concerned that EBRD should put more money, more effort in Central Asia, and working with the governments, our private sector counterparts, to ensure that stability continues and there is continuous development in the region. So it is a strategic interest. It is absolutely in the focal attention. I've just recently been to Brussels, talked to my counterparts. It is in the focal attention now. I very much hope it will be maintained and not just these months, of how to make sure that this region maintains its stability. Now, would there be refugees from Afghanistan? Again, developments we are monitoring very closely. It depends also on the neighboring countries, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, whether they are ready to receive any refugees. If they come, when they come, and in Tajikistan, I understand that there have been already 10 to 12,000 Afghan citizens that have lived there now long, then EBRD is preparing, yes, a contingency plan of how to have those who would stay there longer term to integrate, so that it's not a burden on the country, but basically they leverage them, their knowledge and the labor force.
So Hargitai, last but not least, what do you think are some of the biggest lessons we've learned from this pandemic? And coming out of it, what do you think will change in our economic, social behaviors, or the way we're governed and organized as societies?
A lot of it has been implemented. Well, first of all, I'm already delighted that I could come to the studio. And you didn't see my face, because most of the time to date I have been giving interviews just on my mobile phone. But at the same time, you and I will learn that it can be done. So a lot of it is what we call now the hybrid working, is now put into action. I believe that we shall travel less, but there will be more interaction, because we have got used to using this technology, and not just the technology, the feeling that we can actually establish relationship, not the first one. Just before this interview, I told you that establishing a first relationship is not good. through technology. We still need each other. So hybrid working, logistics is changing. I wouldn't say that globalization is coming to an end, but there will be more inbuilt flexibility in logistics, a bit more nearshoring, that's another bit, and hopefully we shall be far more cautious. Anyway, when you are wearing mask or I wearing mask, we feel it now as a second skin, unfortunately. So hopefully all these health measures, and most of them, not the restrictive ones, they will stay in place so that any further epidemics can be prevented.
Ms. Hargitai, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.